a recap of this first week in college football, the first full week. And I'm gonna go over the games like I was looking because we were originally gonna do like a preview of what we thought was gonna happen, but we're gonna do a bit of a recap. I'm gonna react to some games that I didn't really have my eye on, but these are the ones you know uh, that I had my eye on. And the first one obviously is 1 versus 3, Texas and Ohio State. Wow, what a game that was! That was 14-7, and I gotta say, like you could say, like it was a close game or it was a defensive battle or all that. No, this was Ohio State manhandling Texas. I think Ohio State took the foot off the gas. I think Ohio State was sort of like they were run. I mean, they were running the clock. I mean, they were trying their best, of course, right? But like they had a lot of long running drives. They were more doing clock management. If they wanted to throw the football, I think they would have threw it more. They had that one long touchdown pass, their second touchdown, that went for about 40 yards. I think Ohio State could have put more on them if they wanted, but they didn't really feel threatened by Texas. And this was a rough game by Arch Manning. There's no other way to put it. You could say the play calling was a little bit questionable. I would agree with that. You could say Texas maybe some of the running backs, receivers could have made a couple more plays. I would agree with that too. But I think you do, unfortunately, and I'm not trying to beat up on the kid, but just there was no presence of quarterback for Texas. I mean, they did eventually have that one long touchdown pass at the end, but most of the game they were scared to throw it beyond 10 yards with Arch Manning. The first time they did, it was a pick that was way underthrown. So I think Arch Manning and them they'll settle in eventually, but when they're saying this was the number one team in the country and this is supposed to be like, one of these legacy teams, that was a stinker. I don't care if it's Ohio State. That was a really bad game. So that was my big first takeaway yesterday, and I'm sure other people here will have some thoughts on that, but I'm gonna just keep going on with a couple more highlights. My alumni, the University of North Dakota, we played surprisingly very good. I think some sportsbook even had it like I think it was minus 27.5 right before the game. Um, we're coming in with the new coach. We have Eric Schmidt, who just took over. Bubba, who was the longtime coach for North Dakota, just recently retired. You know, we had a lot of new players coming in. The starting quarterback last year, I'm forgetting his name right now, but anyways, I think he either transferred or got benched. We're starting Jerry now. He had a very good game yesterday. And I was impressed by them. I ended up being very sad because I thought like, and I was even saying like, I'm just happy that we're in this point, but then the way to lose like that, losing is never fun. So I'm still a little upset that UND did not beat Kansas State, but you just got to give credit to Kansas State on that final drive under 2 minutes. Pulling it off, but I was really hoping North Dakota could pull it off. But maybe that means we could compete with North Dakota State this year. We'll see where that goes with that. And then yeah, just one more before I throw it around is that LSU Clemson game. I sort of didn't really understand why Clemson was ranked all the way at number 4. Yeah, you have Cade Klubnik, who's a good quarterback returning. He had a very good statistical year last year. But I didn't really remember anything special about that Clemson team last year. And they're still going to be a good team this year, but people were thinking they had the ACC on lock. I did not see that at all. So those are my big initial takeaways from yesterday. We'll go Jordan. Jordan, what were some of your big ones?
Okay. So I have three big takeaways from yesterday. I'm gonna, start with my favorite team. Believe it or not, I know we played Marshall, but I am extremely encouraged by the way we looked. Gunnar Stockton looked great at quarterback. It looks like we have a playmaker on the outside and Zachariah Branch. The defense looked great yesterday as usual. I don't really have any complaints at all. Just wish we forced a turnover or two on defense, but that'll come. Offensive line, I thought had a little bit of a struggle. There was a consistent pass rush, so I want to see that improve next week. Um, and then keeping it in the SEC, I'm going to go with. I thought it was really surprising that Alabama laid the stinker they did yesterday. Um, when you think of Alabama, you think of Nick Saban, and there is no way Nick Saban would have let that happen yesterday. Not even close. Ty Simpson is not the answer. Um, the offensive line looked terrible. Ryan Williams unfortunately got hurt throughout late in the game. I hope he's okay. But Alabama might have an 8-4 75 season coming, and I cannot think what's going to happen in Tuscaloosa if that happens.
Really,
Kalen DeBoer is already.
I want to make a
Go
really
ahead.
quick point on that. Yeah, I think what that game showed, and I think I was talking to you guys a little bit about this. I think that game showed, number one, I think the first thing that showed is FSU is not 2-10 anymore. They're a very solid team. You got to give them credit. They're going to have a bounce back here. But I think Jordan's right. I think realistically, I look at both FSU and I look at Alabama as probably being about like 8-4 teams right now. And I agree. You're saying Ty Simpson might not be it, but what about Kalen DeBoer? I'm thinking like, I agree. Like, it's one thing if you lose, it's one thing if you're just not even competitive. And Alabama was not. So I look at both of these teams at sort of 8-4 right now.
But yeah, to get back to that point, Evan, I appreciate the drop in. But to get back to that point, Kalen DeBoer, so Alabama fans have not seen a performance like that in a while. Because like I mentioned, Nick Saban always had his teams on top, always beyond competitive, all that stuff. He recruited the best players, like whatever you want to say. But Kalen DeBoer is on the hot seat. And then getting back to Alabama's schedule coming up, they still have road games at Georgia, which I think they're going to lose. They have a home game against Tennessee, which I don't know if y'all paid attention, but Tennessee looked really good yesterday. And then at South Carolina, who we'll see what they look like today. And then they have a game at Auburn, and Auburn is a very tough place to play. We know what the history is there between Alabama and Auburn. So that's takeaway number two. And then takeaway number three is LSU getting the big win for the SEC and I guess the fake Death Valley, if I want to call it that. Um, this was a defensive game. Like Evan mentioned, I don't understand why Clemson was ranked number 4, let alone ahead of Georgia. Um, I don't really have a whole lot of thoughts on that game, but that's also something that stuck out to me. Jake?
Yeah, so I think the big conversation here is quarterback names, transfer quarterbacks, highly carried quarterbacks, quarterbacks taking over for other guys who went to the NFL last year. I want to start with the Tennessee transfer quarterback, Joey Aguilar. He transferred over from UCLA. He looked very good last night in leading the Vols to a win over the ACC Syracuse Orange. I think Tennessee's going to have a really good season. You know, Going to that first game that Evan mentioned, Texas Ohio State. This was supposed to be big offensive shootout, biggest game of the year, hopefully. Um, but it wasn't that. It was a defensive matchup, and I think, and like Evan said, Ohio State dominated this game. Um, you know, Julian saying, that late touchdown throw to Cornell Tate, which basically almost sealed it. You know, but Ox Manning did not have a good game. We look for him to get better throughout the season, but his first showing against Ohio State was not a good showing. And the last game I want to mention the Ole Miss Rebels. And the reason why I want to mention that game is because, you know, I know it was Georgia State, but you still hung 63 up on Georgia State on the team. And, a lot of people thought they were going to take a step back, losing Jackson Dart to the NFL, losing Trey Harris to the NFL, having to start I think sophomore quarterback, correct me if I'm wrong on that, but Austin Simmons, he was obviously sitting behind Jackson Dart last year. He but you still go out and put 63 up on a college football team. I think that shows me that Ole Miss can, you know, they're still no, they're still led by a very good quarterback. Whether it because it's they're still led by a good quarterback, even though it's not Jackson Dart.
Yeah, and I also want to shout out, and if we're talking high scores, USC hung 73 yesterday. They beat Missouri State, who I think just transferred to FBS, so that's a nice welcome to FBS gift. 73 to 13, I believe, in that one. And then I also just want to talk about my former school really quick, MTSU, because I'm just looking at the scoreboard here and I even completely missed this one. They lost by 20 to at home to FCS Austin P. And, congratulations to Austin P, of course, but that is a very pathetic result. I won't go way too far into that, but like, I went to that school. I went to classes with some football players. I've got nothing but nice things to say about some of those people, but that is a place that, like, when you see some of these like group of five teams and you see some of these FCS schools, some of the most competitive of like, like those schools are, coaches who like, go to the next level. Like they're there for a couple years and then they go to the next level. That school is sort of just like, like a nepotism, like hive, I guess you could say. Like they just keep the same people around forever and forever. So got to put them on blast a little bit. They got to do better than that. But yeah, I'll hand it over to Timmy. Timmy, you got any thoughts on college football this past weekend?
So I watched 3 games. I paid attention to the Bama game because obviously I despise Bama. Um, I watched the Tennessee game, and Joey Aguilar and the new running back room for Tennessee both looked incredible. Um, then I went to the ETSU game. And I can tell you this: Cade McNamara and Jacoby Criswell, the double quarterback system ETSU runs, is they have quarterback room in FCS. After that's an overreaction. Obviously, it's only 1 week, and then um, I went and I hate watched the UCLA game because of Nico, and Nico went and looked like complete and total. Can I cuss on here? I'm not gonna do it.
Sure. Up to you.
Dog crap. Uh, and it was just
Well,
it
really
was
quick, Timmy.
boring.
I don't think he looked like dog crap. I think he just is dog crap. I mean, we remember
Uh,
how he played last year too, but yeah. Well, I think we might have got a freeze.
And then can I just mention one quick thing about Austin P?
Yeah, go for
They might have gotten a nice win over Middle Tennessee State last week. But I think they're getting beat by 60.
it. I did see that. I did see that when I was just checking. They are playing Georgia
They
next week.
they take a
Yeah.
road trip.
Yeah.
They take a road trip to
give them
Athens,
my
Georgia.
iPad for next
So
episode.
that made big kind of fun.
Yeah, I just noticed that they were. Even if that line was like 60 points, I don't. I still wouldn't even take Austin P on that one.
I wouldn't
Yeah, I
bet the
still
game at
might
all.
take Georgia.
Um, there was one more thing I wanted to mention about week one, and that's the Boise State South Florida game on Thursday night. It just seemed to me like Ashton Jeanty went to the NFL and Boise State kind of forgot how to play football.
Oh my gosh, yeah, we forgot about Boise State. That was on Thursday, I believe. That was the first game of the first game of this week. It started at like 4:30 my time. And it's not like USF is like or excuse me, University of South Florida is like this big world beater. Like that was embarrassing. Like USF, I think at best is going to be like a 6-6 team. So that's not like they faced one of the top teams in their conference. That was pretty embarrassing by Boise State, and they're not beating the allegations of Aston Genty was their entire team last year. But
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah,
I was gonna say you gotta give South Florida credit though. They look really good. Obviously the transfer wide receiver Chaz Nimrod, I think he had a couple catches, maybe for a touchdown. Byron Brown coming back after his injury last year and scoring 2 touchdowns on the ground. And I think he threw for one. I'm not sure on that. But obviously big performance by Byron Brown in his first game back from injury. We'll see how, he takes on the rest of the season. They play Miami later in the season. I hope they don't win that game, but should be a good one, if they keep playing like this.
Yeah. Okay. So let's jump. Jake mentioned Miami. This is being recorded on Sunday afternoon, so this is before Miami season opener. Let's get Jake's thoughts first on the Miami Notre Dame game.
Oh, I'm nervous. Couple reasons why. Carson Beck, obviously highly touted transfer quarterback from Georgia. I'm excited to see how he plays tonight. JoJo Traeger, freshman wide receiver, highly touted freshman wide receiver. Excited to see how he goes out there tonight. Does he go out there and ball out? He's been having a great practice with the Canes. But obviously the practice is not games, and you're going up against the number 6 team in the country, Notre Dame. So I'm excited to see how JoJo Traego looks out there tonight. And one more point on Notre Dame. Notre Dame is starting a freshman quarterback who is playing his first ever collegiate game, and you start him against the number 10 team in the country in Miami. I just think that's kind of weird. I think they should have gone with a different quarterback, especially for this game. Maybe start him next week. But that was my
But
thoughts on it.
You are correct about the quarterback, but Notre Dame, the reason why they're ranked so high and like number 6 in the country still or whatever, is they have so much returning players. What's his name? Bryce Love, their running back, is returning. He was amazing last year. This game to me, I could really see either team winning this game. I have a weird feeling that I do agree with Jake that I think Miami is going to win this game. Just because it's at home and it's like a big start. But this game, all rides on Carson Beck. If we get like some like Carson Beck that some games he showed last year for Georgia, I'm thinking about that Ole Miss game, then we might be in a little bit of trouble here. But I think it's gonna a week one, it's good weather down there. You're at home, expectations aren't crazy high right now. I think they're gonna go out play and win, but I could realistically see either team win this. This is gonna be a fun one.
Okay, so my thoughts on the Notre Dame Miami game. This is definitely one to watch for me because all of the big buzz was made about how bad Miami's defense was last year. They couldn't stop a nosebleed, all that stuff. And then you go out in the transfer portal, you basically revamp your secondary. So I'm going to see how that looks
Yep.
tonight. And I've heard nothing but good things coming out of Miami camp. So that makes me excited to watch this game. And then on Notre Dame's side, like Jake mentioned, you're starting a freshman quarterback on the road at Miami, first career start. Not sure how that's going to go. Not sure I agree with that decision, but we'll see. I'm not the head coach. Marcus Freeman is. Shout out to him. And then, I mean, Jake mentioned he doesn't know why Notre Dame's ranked number 6. They have production coming back. I think Evan actually butchered his name. I think it's Jeremiah Love.
Okay,
I might be
Jeremiah. I
wrong
said
on that.
Bryce
I
Love. Yeah,
apologize.
yeah.
I,
I just
I
remembered his
apologize
last
on
name
that.
was Love. Yep. Yeah.
Yeah, I apologize on that if I'm wrong, but Notre Dame just came off the national championship run last year. Unfortunately, losing to Ohio State, but still a national championship game appearance. Obviously, you have the big rivalry aspect of it, Catholics versus convicts from the 1980s. Last time they met down in South Florida, things didn't go very well for the Irish. I know Jake remembers that very well. The moment I remember from that game is the Trajan Bandy pick 6 off Ian Book. But I think Miami wins the game tonight. I do not think it's going to be a blowout. Give me the Canes to win 27-23.
Yes, the Trajan Bangy pick six against Ian Book is arguably the loudest I've ever heard Hard Rock Stadium for a Hurricanes game. And um, you know, talking about the Notre Dame freshman quarterback, he's going to quit by halftime. He's going to quit the team by halftime. He's going to come off the field saying, and I quote, "Now I see why they call him convicts."
You better not hope he throws for like 300 or 400 yards now, because this video
Yeah,
will
because
be
Jake,
posted.
Oh,
This video will be up either today or tomorrow, so we'll all get to see that one. But I know there's one more
no, I'm
thing.
going to sound very crazy if he does.
Okay. Yes, yeah, and which I've done plenty of times on the show, but that's the fun of it. But well, not to that extent, I guess. But anyways, I know there was one more thing Jordan wanted to talk about on this topic, and that was a little bit about the legacy of Lee Corso. Obviously, if you know college football, even just a casual, you probably are familiar with him. Putting on the headgear when he makes his picks. He's been doing the ESPN Gameday show for a very long time, and it was announced this past spring that he was going to be retiring, but he would do one more show. And that last show was this weekend. I'm gonna be honest, I only watched the first 5 minutes and then I had other things I wanted to do, but I just wanted to see the beginning, like, see how it went and all that. But yeah, just like sort of I believe he just recently turned 90 or is turning 90, but yeah, just a big piece of college football. I know he was like really slipping like a little bit mentally in the last couple of years. I don't want to go way into that, but like it's a show, it's what he's been doing forever. It's not that serious, and I still think, and I was watching the show last year, and again, like I said, a tiny bit this year, so far, and I didn't feel like the show production was falling at all. I think they integrated him perfectly. So yeah, what a great send off for him, and seems like he's doing pretty well on his picks though too.
Yeah, so Evan mentioned his picks. I believe he's 4-0, and also the team that he played for and the teams that he coached for yesterday all won. So congratulations to Lee. But yeah, so just an amazing career. I personally found it funny that his first ever pick was Brutus the Buckeye, and his last ever pick was Brutus the Buckeye. He ended his career with basically 2 out of 3 correct in his headgear picks.
Yeah.
So shout out to him on that. I know how hard it is to predict college football games when upsets happen all the time. But yeah, I just wanted to mention Lee Corso because he's just been a staple of college football. Like Evan mentioned, when you think of college football, you think of Lee Corso. And I just wanted to mention him because I feel like he deserves that respect. Working for ESPN, I believe 38 years, if I remember right. So just shout out Lee Corso. I wish him the best in retirement. Um, yeah, that's what I got.
Yeah, Lee Corso, absolute legend. Happy retirement to him. Spend the next spending however much time he's got left, just chilling out home with the grandkids. Everybody will always remember the famous headgear picks he always has. And College Game Day would never be the same without him though.
Yeah, I real quick, I just want to mention that I instantly felt immediate regret yesterday because we know the last couple of years College Game Day has been at Athens, Georgia quite a bit, and I regret not going one time because Lee Corso is so iconic, and I really wish I had the chance to meet him and all that when you know. So
Legend. Maybe he'll still come to the shows, but yeah, obviously that'd be a little bit different. Maybe he'll
Yeah.
like come as like a
Nah.
spectator sometimes though. Yeah,
Yeah.